What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are having a great day as always. If you guys haven't already subscribed, make sure you guys go ahead and do so. Closing in on 3,000 subscribers, which is a huge milestone for us. But let's go ahead and get into the video. So this is a video we've all been waiting for a while now. I've had this iron rock off-road lift in the garage for a couple months now, and we're finally going to install it. So we're actually going to be installing the Crossmember today, then we'll do the front part of the lift, the 3-link, then the rear part, the 4-link, in 3 separate videos. I might have a 4th video for all the details, and then also a full video on the entire install. In case you guys are also doing this lift, you don't have to go between the videos and watch it all over again. So with that being said, let's go ahead and just get right into it. So I have everything set up here that we're going to need to install the Iron Rock Off-Road Crossmember. This will be used for our 3-link front mounts for the long arm kit. So basically we have the 2 side mounts. These will replace where the normal Crossmember bolts in. Then this will attach to these mounts. We'll have to drill a couple holes here. I actually just went and picked up the drill bit size we'll need, so it'll be good to install this. I have the directions laid out. I also picked up this angle finder at the store. We'll need that when we install the actual arms and everything to make sure that the caster angle lines up with what we need and matches the output angle on the transfer case. So that shouldn't be too bad. We have everything we need here. So we are about to start installing the lift. I'm going to start with the front first because it seems more straightforward. I got all the hardware laid out here, some Loctite, everything like that. If you guys haven't picked up one of these Gripty mats, I definitely recommend it. This makes jobs like this easy. Super easy to clean, just spray out, brake clean, you're good to go. This is perfect though because you can lay it underneath the Jeep and you're pretty much good to go. So for starters, both sides of the cross members, there's going to be 4 bolts. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll be the same on that side as this side. You'll have to remove those 4 bolts, and then up on the transmission mount there'll be 1 bolt that you have to remove. That'll drop this down. Before we can do that though, we're gonna have to go ahead and get the jack stand under here and the jack, and we'll have to jack up the transfer case similar to what we have done on this one, except this is just being held up by the drive shaft. Probably not ideal. I'm gonna go ahead and spray these bolts one more time with some PB Blaster because on this Jeep we broke off the bolts, and on this one I really don't want to do the same thing. So we're gonna go ahead, spray all the bolts, get some up inside of there, and then I'm gonna set the camera down and we'll spray the bolts on transmission mount. These are the bolts I'm talking about. They're there, and then on the other side there's the nut obviously, and then we have 4 more on the other side. So I've gone ahead and got the jack underneath the transfer case. I just put a little bit of pressure on it until this got tight, and then went up a little bit more to relieve some of the stress on the cross member and everything, and should make some of the bolts easier to get out. So I've loosened the 4 bolts on the other side. Now we're going to go to this side. We got a 5/8 socket on here. I'm just going to loosen all 8 to make sure there's no issues loosening them. Then I'll go ahead and loosen the middle one. Once we get them loosened, we'll go ahead and drop it down. Alright, so the old crossmember is officially out of the Jeep. We got all 4 bolts out on both sides of the crossmember. One of them, this one here, did break, but there was a big enough gap between the top of this and the bottom of the frame thing to where I could fit the Sawzall through there and just chopped it in half. The nut actually broke loose on the top side there, so it was just spinning and it was rounded off, so there's nothing I could do to grab it, so we just cut it out. So my plan there is, for example, if this is the bolt we're going to be threading up through the new crossmember, put it up through, and I'll get a nut that fits it and put it on the top, and then we'll just torque everything down to spec. So this is the original, the old one, the one we're replacing. Getting replaced with this. I think I'm going to pick up a new transmission mount while we're in here. Next step is mounting the side pieces here. So I believe 4 of these holes should line up with the pre-existing holes. 2 of them will need to be drilled. Once those are in, 2 of these bolts will actually connect to 2 of these. So essentially the side piece there is this, except it has a built-in controller mount, and then this is a separate piece in the middle. It'll mount up. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how we're going to do that. Alright, so I've gone ahead and bolted up the driver's side bracket with 4 pre-existing holes. So the next step is to mark where the 2 new holes need to be drilled. So I'm going to go ahead and mark those with probably a Sharpie, or I'll etch it in or something like that. So that way we can go ahead and drill those holes. Once those holes are drilled, we'll then need the nut plates that Iron Rock Off-Road provides. We'll fish these up through the frame rails. This will probably be the most difficult and time-consuming part, is getting these in the right spot. You're going to want a 7/16 drill bit. I went ahead and just picked up a new one to drill these holes out with. So I'm going to go ahead and etch it or mark it with a Sharpie or something, and we'll get those holes drilled out, get these up in there, and we'll get the brackets mounted up. So once we're done the driver's side, we'll have to do the same thing, repeat the same step on the passenger side. Mount it up with these 4 holes, mark where these 2 line up. One thing to keep in mind is make sure you guys have these on the right side. There's also a little rubber piece that goes on the control arm bracket. On the driver's side, you're going to need that so that nothing rubs on there and messes up any of the lines or anything that passes by. But once that's done, pretty much these are ready to be bolted up. The side brackets are on, so that means we can go ahead and bolt on the front control arms. Alright, so a little update. I did get the holes drilled out. So what I did was, when I had the bracket mounted up here, I just took the drill and went a little bit to where it marked the spot that I needed to drill out. So now, as you guys can see, we have the 2 holes. I'm going to clean up some of the surface rust here and paint over it. Then I have this nut plate, which we'll have to fish up through there, or maybe through here or something, and get it lined up right above those holes. So once this is lined up, we'll be able to thread our bolts right into there. This will cover. So what that'll do is cover these 2 holes there. It'll pinch it between the unibody rails, and we'll be able to mount all 6 bolts on this side, and that'll give us a pretty sturdy mount for these brackets. Once this side's done, we'll have to repeat it on the other side. This was actually super simple. I'm interested to see how difficult this is to get lined up. I think what I'm going to do is feed it up through there, grab it with one of the bolts, so that way I can sort of twist it around once we get it in there tight, and then I'll stick a screwdriver up through the other side and hold it in spot. That way we can get both of these bolts in there and get everything mounted up nice and securely. Alright guys, so I have both of these bolts in the holes that we drilled. One thing I would recommend is, once you get the bracket bolted up there, stick the drill back through and kind of clean out that hole. Get it to the exact right size. That'll make this a lot easier. What I found to work best with this nut plate, threading it up, was to put it up through the hole right in front of the bracket and then push it out with your finger or a screwdriver. I also got, let's see where it went. I cut up a metal clothes hanger and used this super thin piece of metal, because you can bend it easily and get it to the right shape you need, to then feed that nut plate up through the unibody rail thing. And what I ended up doing was getting it lined up with one of the 2 holes. Once it was lined up, I then carefully, without moving it and holding it through this hole with my finger, tightened down one of the bolts enough to where I could use that to rotate the plate. Then I rotated the plate to line up with the other bolt. Once that was done, I went ahead, tightened them both down pretty tight. All these bolts are not tightened as far as they can go, because I'm going to come back through and torque these down to the right spec. Once I get this side done, which this side's basically done, then I have to do the other side, and then we have to put the center cross member in, which shouldn't be too bad. I'm hoping that all fits perfectly, lines up pretty well and all that stuff. One thing to keep in mind is there is some lines here, your brake lines, I think, and then a fuel line. You're going to have to clip the bottom 2 out of the clip that they come in to make room for the bracket that goes up. That's also the side you're going to add that little rubber piece on, so that way none of it rubs on the bracket and breaks or wears a hole through it or anything like that. So now that this side's done, we're going to go ahead and repeat this process on the other side. Alright guys, so both sides of the new Crossmember are installed. So I'm going to have to remove the 2 inside bolts on that side. Already removed this side. Then we'll go ahead and use 2 holes that are on the side of this Crossmember. Pull it out so you guys can see it. Use these 2 holes and these 2 holes to line up the Crossmember, get it installed. This will be our new mount for the transmission mount, so we'll put a bolt through there, 2 bolts here. So essentially we are 5 bolts from complete on installing this. I did want to go ahead and show you guys, while we have it pretty easily accessible, is the difference between the stock control arm mounts and the long arm mounts. As you guys can see, there's a huge difference. We're actually going to end up cutting these off when we get the front crossmember, or the crossmember finished and the front control arms on. This will be the 3-link setup from Iron Rock Off-Road. Alright guys, so I got the crossmember back in the Jeep. So next step is going to be coming through and torquing all of these to spec. So let's head over to the directions and figure out what that will be. So according to the directions, the 2 on each side that we drilled out will be 65 foot-pounds. So I have my Ulsa Tools digital torque wrench here, so we'll go ahead, set this to 65. Then I'll get the right socket, head over there, and we'll go ahead and torque these down. So all the bolts are torqued down. This thing comes in super handy with the digital, and it just beeps when you get to the right point. So that pretty much wraps up the crossmember install. Just have to clean up some. But we got all the bolts on the outside torqued down, the transmission mount torqued down, then the other outside mount torqued down. So the next step is going to be working on the front suspension. So basically replacing everything up here. We literally have all new everything to go up here. I have to build all the joints for the control arms, so that'll probably be the next episode you guys see. Then we'll go ahead and start working on removing the factory control arms, cutting off brackets, all that kind of fun stuff.